One of the newer things I've also enjoyed on the recent issues of Amazing Spider-Man is Peter's job at Horizon Labs, which at first I didn't think sounded all that interesting, but it really shows, it really true. I think Dan Slott really gets it, and it shows off Peter's genius and provides good chemistry with his fellow scientists. Oh wow, I think I just accidentally made a pun. Moving on. This is the first time I had ever read the Jackal in a comic. I knew the character's history because I have an encyclopedia of Spider-Man, and I knew the effect he had on Spider-Man, but I had never actually read a comic with him or seen him in anything else like an animated series. So it's an important character to Spider-Man's history, and I never actually, was exposed to the character. And I'm not sure about the rest of his history, but in this book, they made him a real fun mad scientist who has billions of clones of himself, which comes surprisingly into play in the epilogue. My favorite scene with the Jackal, or at least one of his clones, is when one of his clones is walking down the street, and he just looks like regular Professor Miles Warren. And he's walking down the street with utter chaos around him, and he's singing "Let It Snow, Let It Snow." And when he goes to his base, his clone says, "Hello, Miles. How are you, Miles?" And the guy he's talking to, his clone, says, "It's a madhouse out there, Miles. We're having the time of our life over here, Miles." And it's hysterical. Excuse me again. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed the Jackal. Now, on to a few complaints. I didn't find the Queen all that interesting, but honestly, I had no problem with her character. And so, that's not really a giant complaint. I just thought she wasn't that interesting. Another problem is that the whole beginning of the book, where the Jackal re-recruits Kane and, resurrects him and everything, I thought that was so boring. And it just really, just kind of halted my excitement into getting into the book. It was so slow, and I really didn't care. So it really lessened my excitement. Another part of the book I didn't find all that interesting was the issue that focuses on the new Hobgoblin. Although it's still more interesting than, the Jackal and Kane section with the messed up Gwen Stacy clone. The thing I didn't like about the new Hobgoblin, which I think a bunch of other people also think, is that the new Hobgoblin, he's like the evil Peter Parker, but the way I liked the Hobgoblin is in the 90s animated series, where he was just a rich bad guy, which made him pretty cool. And so in here he's just another guy that's jealous of Peter, so it's not that cool. Next little problem I have is that I find Jessica Carpenter as Madam Web, I found her to be as annoying as everyone else in the book finds her to be. All she talks is about the future and all, and each character pretty much acknowledges that her prophecies suck, especially Kane. While it was nice to see that the other characters were annoyed by her, it still didn't stop me from feeling annoyed every time she came on the comic. And finally, my last complaint is that there were a few places where I thought the humor was forced. Prime example of this is towards the end, where Spider-Man says he's going to moon Madam Web, which I didn't think was that funny because it was just too extreme. I don't think Spider-Man would actually say that. Actually, on the whole, Spidey, mature-wise, seems to have gone back a year or two from how he was in JMS's run. JMS's run, he was still funny and still quirky, but here he feels in JMS's run he feels like he's like in his late 20s. Here he looks like his personality feels more like he's 21. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is based on Marvel deciding the marriage made him seem too old, which I always thought was a stupid idea, or the way Dan Slott writes Spider-Man. I won't go far as to say Dan Slott writes the character poorly. I think he did a very good job here, but it's just a little weird to me. But these are very minor complaints, to be honest, because this is the most fun story I've read in a long time. Like at a certain point, every page, I was either laughing or thinking, "Man, that looks so cool." Which is just, this is the prime example of what you would call a blockbuster book. In many ways, Spidey is, one of my sacred characters, since this is the very first superhero I was exposed to, and I felt that this pulled off the level of action and drama and comedy, which makes for, I think, the best Spider-Man stories. And another thing, this book is extremely reverential to past Spider-Man history, especially the parts of Spider-Man's history that weren't that well received, like the Clone Saga. But this is just what every single Spider-Man event has been trying to do, and this one has succeeded more than any of them. This one showed how to truly make a giant event that doesn't suck. Well, again, it's not completely giant. It's just still mostly in Spider-Man, and it's only like 8 issues long. But if you combine everything, it's still a pretty big event. But still, the actual book itself, the actual main storyline itself, with including the Venom issues, just pulled it off so well. And I truly commend Dan Slott for doing that. Even though I still prefer the earlier parts of JMS's run, which I think are my favorite Spider-Man comics of all time, I still definitely highly recommend Spider Island. And this is a great, this is a great place to jump back into Spider-Man. And yeah, it's a very fun, very good comic. I think the best event book I've ever read. So yeah, so stay tuned to my next review, which I'm not sure what it'll be, but it'll be good, I hope. Thanks for listening.